if A is part of B and B is part of C, then A is part of C. See how that works?
What is up, guys? Click that subscribe button, ring that bell. I hate
Punch
that
it.
so much. No, but thank you for joining us on the Lacey Brothers podcast show type thing, where we, the Lacey Brothers, talk about stuff.
It'd be great if we weren't the Lacey Brothers. We've just been holding their spot for weeks.
They've been trying to get our website domain name. We're not selling.
All right, so here we go. We are going to talk a little bit about a topic. We were like, what's something everybody can agree on right before Thanksgiving where nobody's going to get upset or anything. So we thought, like, abortion, right? Of course. So that's a little bit what we're going to be talking about, but specific aspects of it. And I know what you're thinking already. You're like, but you're men. You don't get an opinion. So you've probably heard this phrase, no uterus, no opinion. And I really want to tackle that first right off the bat because I don't want you to tune us out because you're like, well, you're men, you don't get an opinion. So I just want to point out that that phrasing in and of itself is actually called the identity fallacy. That falls in that category. So what I'm saying is if I were to make some argument from a pro-life perspective and you were like, no, I disagree, but my response to your argument is going to be, well, you're a man, so you don't get an opinion. That is a cop-out. You're not dealing with the argument. You're saying because you are of this gender, but it could be race, it could be whatever, you belong to this organization, so on and so forth, you dodge the argument and you're attacking the person's identity instead. It's a logical fallacy. It's illogical. So my advice is if you are pro-choice, no matter who's delivering an opposing argument, if you want to debate, this is not just for me. This strengthens your position because then you're not committing a logical fallacy. Just stand your ground and defend your position. If their argument's good, it's good. If their argument's bad, it's bad. Call that out. You don't have to avoid the argument. Just stand your ground and do it. It doesn't matter if it's man or whatever. Okay? So no uterus, no opinion is pretty dumb because that's also an opinion on people having opinions, and the list goes on and on, basically. If you're not a man, you can't have an opinion on what men are supposed to have opinions on. See how that works? It's absurd. So, regardless of where you're at on this issue, regardless of that phrasing, I'll kind of leave that there for a second. We're going to talk more specifically about the phrase, my body, my choice. That's going to be exactly what we addressed. But like I said in the beginning, we didn't want you to get the wrong idea.
Yeah.
So just to put all doubt to rest, if you're still like, no, I just don't think I agree, we're going to do this. For the next 10 or 15 minutes, however long this video is going to be, we are going to identify as women. That way, we'll just take that one off the table altogether.
You don't have to worry about it anymore.
Yeah. We're two women giving you our opinions on abortion. Okay? So I'm Summer.
I'm Autumn.
And these are some of our opinions on my body, my choice. So Alex, will you actually redo the intro? All right, so now that we're women, Autumn's going to go ahead and start expounding a little bit.
So the first thing we're going to look at is a argument that we've heard a lot, and it's an analogy called the violinist. It's a little lengthy, I apologize. So it goes, you wake up in the morning and find yourself back to back in bed with a unconscious violinist, a famous unconscious violinist. He has been found to have a fatal kidney ailment, and the Society of Music Lovers has canvassed all available medical records and found that you alone have the right blood type to help. They have therefore kidnapped you, and last night the violinist's circulatory system was plugged into yours so that your kidneys can be used to extract poisons from his blood as well as your own. The director of the hospital now tells you, look, we're sorry the Society of Music Lovers did this to you. We would never have permitted it if we had known, but they did, and the violinist is now plugged into you. To unplug you would be to kill him. Is it morally incumbent on you to accede to this situation? No doubt it would be very nice of you if you did, a great kindness, but do you have to accede to it? What if it were not 9 months, but 9 years, or longer still? What if the director of the hospital says, tough luck, I agree, but now you've got to stay in bed with the violinist plugged into you for the rest of your life? Because remember this, all persons have a right to life, and violinists are persons. Granted, you have a right to decide what happens in and to your body, But a person's right to life outweighs your right to decide what happens in and to your body. So you cannot ever be unplugged from him. So that's the analogy. You good?
That changed my mind.
No, okay. That's the analogy that is thrown around a lot, and it doesn't have to be that exact wording. There's like a famous scientist. There's all sorts of other kind of like trees off of this main vine. But there's 3 points to this that I really want to cover. What? Trees off the vine?
Yeah, just thinking of this one little vine producing all these trees.
It's a really cool vine. It's new. So, 3 things we want to look at throughout this analogy that don't really add up. And the first one is consent. So in this very depressing, 100% made up story, it leads off by having you kidnapped. So immediately you're the victim. And this is already an issue because less than 1% of abortions are done because of rape or incest or where you are the victim of some kind. So it's setting the stage and painting a horrific picture about 1% to completely justify 300,000 plus abortions a year, and that's just from Planned Parenthood. But when we talk about this, we will talk about rape and incest and medically necessity. We will talk about those cases on another episode. But those are always argued to justify the other 99%. So whenever we can sit down and have a serious conversation about the 99 and get that percentage out of the way, since that's the vast majority, then we can sit down and talk about the less than 1% and what to do in those situations. Granted, we still don't think it's okay to kill a child, but that's a whole different conversation for those situations. Second flaw within this analogy is family obligation versus strangers, right? So I would hope, at least, that we all agree that we have a higher level of responsibility or obligation to family members, especially children, than we do some random person on the street. No one goes around the neighborhood at night making sure that all the kids have brushed their teeth before they go to bed. And if you do, how are you not in prison yet? That's really creepy. But no one does that because that's not their kids. They don't have that responsibility. They don't have that obligation to go and do that. As parents, as a mother, as family members, you have the duty of care, which means that it is your responsibility to take care of them. Just because a child is in the womb and it is living off the mother, a 6-month-old out of the womb, you still have that same duty of care. Nothing changes except the location of that child. So you still have that responsibility that you don't have to a stranger.
There's a reason if someone's kid gets injured and you were near the situation, or you've seen it go down, you don't get charged with neglect.
Yeah.
Because it's not your kid. You don't have a personal responsibility to that kid. Not
Yes.
saying we shouldn't try to do our job and our duty and morally, if we see something going down that's dangerous, stop it. But we're not going to get charged with neglect because that's not our responsibility.
Yeah. And even more so, this is your child, right? This isn't a stranger. You made this child. And not talking about the 1%, like we already talked about. Talking about most cases, you consented. You got engaged in the act that created this child. You chose that. So then you have those responsibilities to the child. The last thing that we're going to talk about, and this is a big one, is right to the body, right? So in the second issue, you chose to make this person. So you partook in the act that created a human. So for the next 9 months, give or take, this fetus or child does indeed have a right to your body. And who are you going to argue that it doesn't? You only have really 2 options. You can argue to the government and have them say, no, I have a right to my own body. Or you can go to nature or God, whatever you want to call it, right?
And it is important to just also make a distinction between legality and morality at this juncture, I think. Because even if you cry out to the government and you're like, hey, I should have the right to do this, or this should be my ability. Well, people also had the right to own slaves at one time. So we're not talking about this being a legal issue. We're talking about this being a moral issue. We're coming out of a place saying, morally, this is wrong.
Yeah. So I can go ahead and skip these next couple sentences where I talk about how the government gave rights to slave owners, because we've already covered that now, so that's fantastic.
I guess you weren't getting there fast enough.
Clearly. So I guess we'll jump straight to, if you're pleading to God or nature, you can't plea to the oppressor for liberty or liberation, because that's the one oppressing you, right? So if nature or God is placing this fetus in the womb, which is the place that it is naturally going to grow into a adult human eventually, not still in the womb, it will grow into a baby in the womb, and then it will be born and grow into an adult human outside of the womb. That's important. No baby has ever become an adult in the womb.
You don't know that.
Okay, I guess I don't know that. It could happen. I'm just assuming it doesn't. But you can't plead to nature, who is the very thing that put this child there to begin with. You're not going to win that. However, in the analogy, you can plead to nature. This is a very unnatural thing for a guy to randomly be hooked up to you. That's nowhere in nature is that just found. A baby is only created in the womb. That's where nature wants it created. That's the only place it can be knitted together, is in the womb. You can't plead to nature for that to be wrong, for that to be infringing on your rights. That's not how that works. So that's that analogy. And then do you want to go into the law of transitive relation that you tried to before I spoke?
Yeah, let's do that. I'm sorry. I'm out of sorts today. So there's this charge within this topic. Usually it's just like a battle cry, my body, my choice, right? So what this assumes is that, or the way you can put it in logical format argument, is that a person is not part of another person. A fetus is part of the mother, therefore the fetus is not a person. And then you're like, bam, boom, not a person, it's just fetus, so it's my body, my choice, I can do what I want. Seems pretty cut and dry. The only problem is it's not. It's wrong. So there's this law in philosophy called the law of transitive relation. And simply stated, it goes like this. If A is part of B and B is part of C, then A is part of C. See how that works? I'll give you an example. If a brick is part of a wall and that wall is part of a house, then it follows that that brick is also part of that house, right? So you're probably like, yeah, Ryan, cool law. Why are you bringing this up right now? Well, it's really important because if we are going to say that the fetus isn't a person, it's not part of the mother, we need to run this law real quick, because this means that if a foot is part of the fetus, or let's say heart, let's say the heart is part of the fetus is part of the mother, then the heart is part of the mother, and you're like, well, yeah, she has a heart. Well, but that's not the heart we're talking about. So now this person has two hearts. And then we can apply this with feet. So now this mother has 4 feet. She's got 4 hands. She's got 20 toes. She's got 20 fingers, 2 noses, and roughly like a 50% chance of having a penis. Which, as 2 women currently with penises, that's fine. I'm just saying we can see the absurdities that this is stacking up. So the position you can take now is saying, well, at the beginning stages, before it's a heart or anything, that's when it's a fetus, and it's okay to kill at that juncture, but not when it develops a heart, feet, and all this stuff. But we're still in the same problem. And the reason we're still in that same problem is because at the point of conception, there is a separate genetic DNA code. So, because the law of transitive relation still applies, this means that the mother now has 2 separate genetic codes. Well, she doesn't. That's not true. So, this means that is a separate person with its own genetic DNA code. And since we've already established a person is not part of a person, the fetus is not part of the mother. Therefore, no, it is not your body, your choice. That's philosophy, science. You can do whatever, logic. But that's just the way it goes. That's not I didn't list any of my opinions here. Even though I'm a woman and I get opinions now, that wasn't an opinion. That was simple logic. That was Socratic method. So before this goes further, we can say, well, okay, maybe it's not a person still. It's just a fetus has its own genetic DNA code. Well, all you're doing at this point is really replacing the word person with fetus. But see, even this doesn't work. And the reason because it does not work is because not everything with this particular genetic code is a fetus. For example, the genetic DNA code I had at birth or at conception when I was a fetus is the same exact genetic code that I have today. Not a fetus. So, it's not a replacement word.
You're a strong, independent woman.
I'm a strong, independent woman. Thank you, Autumn.
You're welcome.
So, what this tells us is that, no, we can't call it a fetus. I mean, you can call it a fetus, but that does not mean it's not a person. You're playing semantics at this point. It is the complete genetic code at conception of a person. Not once has it ever been a raccoon, a donkey, anything else. It has always been a human. It's just a semantic game at this point. In Latin, fetus means offspring. And since humans can only give birth to humans, it's undoubtedly a human at the point of conception. There's no other place for it to be. But this is the topic that we want to encompass right now was my body, my choice, full autonomy. That's the issue. We know this is a broad scope of topic. We can talk about like the mother's rights and rape, incest, medical necessity. There's so many avenues we can go, or trees, I guess.
Off the same vine.
Yeah, off the same vine. And we'll get to those eventually, but it's going to take a lot of time to uncover all those. So that's what we want to hit today. I think one last thing, if you want to talk about this.
Yeah, so this book is called The Unaborted Socrates. It is by Peter Kraft.
Yep.
I believe is how you pronounce his last name. Ryan said yeah, and I trust him because it's his book.
He's a professor of philosophy.
We have both read it. It is phenomenal. It does no religious arguments. It goes through logic, the Socratic method, and just walks through almost any argument for abortion and just breaks it down to the simplest terms. It is very good, very helpful if you're looking to talk to someone about it or you just want to know more about it. This is a great resource, and I would highly suggest picking it up on Amazon. Do you remember how much it was?
Yeah, it was just some money.
Yeah. So if you have some money, you can order it, and with Prime, it's 2-day shipping, so that's not bad.
Yeah. So we're going to get out of here because I'm tired of being a woman and fighting the patriarchy. It is exhausting. Thanks for everything you do. I didn't realize it until now. But
are we getting paid less for this episode?
I think so, unfortunately. We'll see you guys next week.
Bye, guys.